Now, housing, if you look at what's coming in for housing in this budget, $2.7 billion over the next 4 years to give everybody more rental support. More rental support. An extra $30 a week if you're on benefits. But anyone who's a hard-working taxpayer, nothing for you. But if you're on benefits, $30. Now, this is going nowhere. Now, we could build a fair few houses. I mean, get your calculators out and work out, the government should be able to build a modest house for $250,000. How much is 2.7 divided by 250,000? It's a fair few, but of course it's the government. They can't build a house for 250,000. That 250,000 would cost $1 million, and it would be half as big. That's the way it works, right? But that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Now, I'm not saying they don't deserve it. It's a reality. Things are going up. But one of the problems I see in Australia right now is that we've got a federal government doing these things, but the difference in costs from state to state is significant. So $30 in Sydney isn't going to do a thing, but it does a reasonable amount in Perth. But they're getting the same amount. So why isn't it sort of proportionate against average rent in that state or something like that? But I'm not a fan of this sort of stuff. I like to help people out, but how much is it worth? They are increasing, which is a good thing, home buyers scheme. But these two measures here, the rent subsidy increase and this, are both demand-driving initiatives at a time where we've got too much demand in the market. So these are not good for me, but I'd rather give someone a helping hand into a house than more rent subsidy, I must say. But it's demand driving, and that's a problem. We need supply incentives. And finally, they are doing something. They're increasing the rental allowance for investment property to 4% if it's buy to rent or built to rent. And that's important because we need to give encouragement to investors like us. And for the last 15 years, all they've done is made it harder for investors with more taxes, more this, less deductions. And what have they got? A rental crisis. Because people say, I got one, I got two, I'm not going to buy another one, it's not worth my while. So we've ended up with a shortage of investment property that is rented, and they're now trying to remedy it. Too little, too late, a bit disappointing. They're also going to give a deduction of the tax rate if a managed fund from overseas buys the entire apartment block and rents it out. Now, I think that's a great initiative. Again, this is a supply side issue, and that's what they need, supply side issues. But we're going to make a big corporation even richer than it already is. So I don't like this one conceptually. And I don't know about you, but when you go to Far East organisation and say, hey, I want to rent one of your houses, they don't ever give me a discount. I've never known a corporation be compassionate, but maybe this will change things, or not. But that's certainly going to be good for investment at least, and if it puts more houses in the deck, then that's not a bad thing. I've got to welcome it. There's a $2 billion boost to the guarantee program, so if you are a developer and you're going to build social housing, you can get loan support guarantees, not cash, but they will underwrite your borrowing to make sure you get over the line and you can go do it, and that's great. I'm really happy about that. This is an extra $2 billion on top of the, I think it was $7 billion they did in November. So that's a fair chunk. It's certainly a big start and heading in the right direction. And they've got $300 million to go into social housing upgrades. So they are doing stuff for housing, and that's important because it has been really, really badly ignored by both parties for the last 15 years. They've taken away capital gains tax. They used to get a 50% discount if you're overseas. That's gone. They used to have, even if you were an expat and you sold your previous residence, you didn't pay tax for the time you lived in it. That's gone if you sell overseas. They've taken away depreciation, travel allowances, all sorts of stuff. Disappointing. And the result, no surprise where we ended up. So can't knock that. But what I'm really angry about is they're still not tackling the big issue, which is supply. It's the only way to fix the problem is bring more good housing on deck. Now, if you need to provide social housing, do an abundance of it, but it doesn't have to be the Taj Mahal. It can just be something that is clean and dry and there's enough room for you and your children to live in until you get on your feet and you can find a better place for you. But no, in Australia we want to say, hey, this could be your forever home. Is this enough for you? And the problem is in Australia, and this is how Australians think, if we built social housing, if we said, hey, look, we're going to go over here, out of town, and we're going to build some lovely houses here, you just have to come over and you can live in it, it's low rent and everything, the Australians will go, oh, I don't want to live there. Yeah, but mate, you don't have a choice. You don't have anywhere else. No, but I'm not living there. I'm not doing that. So this is the thing. Everyone wants choice now instead of requirement. It's not a good world we live in. It's strange. And you can see here, with housing, we're building about 20-odd thousand units and about 20-odd thousand houses per quarter. 100,000 odd. It's just not enough. The population's growing 300,000-400,000. It's not enough houses we're bringing on to the deck. We need more. Now, you can see it peaked there. One of the reasons it peaked was the government said, hey, here's $50,000 extra to build a house. Incredibly, you'd never believe this, to build a house, amazingly went up $50,000 soon after. Incredible. As soon as the subsidy or grant was announced, the price went up. Pure coincidence. But, you know, see, it's dropped off. It's dropped off now. So we're not building enough for the growth that we've got, the need that we've got. And this has been a situation for decades in Australia. This is not a new problem. And that's why they've both got dirt on their hands. They've both ignored this issue for way too long. And they've all taken advantage at state and federal level. And what we need is more land. They've got lots of it. But there's nothing in this budget that says we're going to go and identify plots and release them. At state level, at council level, at federal level. Nothing. And that's what they need to do. That's the only way to solve this. Giving someone extra money isn't a solution. What do you do next time? More money. But that's money you could have built some lovely houses and said, there you go, that's yours. Let's go for it. And there's a big issue with the problem at the moment with the construction industry. There's builders going broke all over the place. Now, they've always been bad business managers. I've got to say that. It's not just because of the environment. But materials have gone up, pressure's gone up, you know, volumes went up. They couldn't manage those volumes. They didn't have the systems to do it. And it put them under great financial pressure, and that's now bearing out in the open market now, where you're seeing builder go into insolvency, etc. So that has to be fixed. Yeah, but it's not. And then the states need to sort their stuff out, because the states are diabolically bad. Diabolically bad. Now, that's not part of the federal budget, but it needs to go mentioned, because the states are pulling 5 to 6% stamp duty every time you buy a property. If it's a new build, there's 6 to 7% GST inside that property. And if you're a foreigner, you pay the state an extra 7 to 8%. What I call the triple dip. 20% of the purchase price in direct state taxes. Yeah, they come out and they go, we want to make housing more affordable. Now, I'm not really good at numbers, even though I chose accounting as a career, but I'm pretty sure if I took away 20% of cost, it's a little bit more affordable. But they don't have that conversation. And to me, even if you want to have a conversation, why do you get stamp duty and GST on the same property? Why don't you, if supply is the problem, let's say, okay, if you buy brand new, you only pay one of them. Now, the one that should go is the GST. GST is 10% of the margin between the cost to build and the cost to sell. 10% when houses are 500, 600, $1 million, $2 million is a fortune. Way more than they ever expected to get. The stamp duty at 5 to 6% on current values is a fortune. Way more than they used to get. They could afford to halve it. They could afford to get rid of the GST on new build, and they sure as heck should get rid of the extra duty on foreigners, because we need foreigners to come back in and create supply. Because the great thing about foreign buyers, 99% of the time they don't live in the property. They rent the sucker out. Oh, guess what? We've got tenants desperate for places to live. Now, I'm happy that they're making this a damn mess, because luckily I've accumulated my few properties over the years. So if you are an owner right now, woohoo! But if you're not an owner, you got real problems. And even if they did all of these things, if they watch this video tonight and they go, geez, Steve, you're right, we'll do all of that. It would take 4 to 6 years for it to flow in to completed stock. So we have a 4 to 6 year window of opportunity to really get some good returns and rents on our properties. And then the other big one, they're now swapping over to this in New South Wales, this annual land tax in lieu of stamp duty. They go, hey, first home buyer, we're going to do you a favour. You don't need to pay stamp duty up front. You can pay it annually instead. And everyone thinks, oh, that's a great idea. But that poor person is now locked into a higher cost for the rest of their life with money they can't really afford annually. Why didn't you just say, don't pay it at all? As I say, the WA government today, record surplus. The only other government in the world that's generating a surplus. New South Wales, huge money. Just say, let's scrub it for you, first home buyer. Not let's defer it. It's wrong. But this is a disaster waiting to happen in our industry because you're just putting even more pressure on people. And how are they going to work the inflationary impact of that one out?